as he grabs a bottle from one of two cases of lager strategically placed courtside at a Bogotá Tejo club. Retired priest Luis Acevedo calls beer the elixir that gives Tejo players their gusto. The elixir may be drowning the sport. Although official tournaments are dry, most Tejo courts are located in private clubs that double as cantinas. This discourages non-drinkers and minors, who aren't allowed inside, from taking up the game. Tejo is ignored by the sports pages. Colombian schools refuse to add Tejo as an extracurricular while parents push their children into more sober endeavors like soccer and cycling. Tejo players, including retired priest Luis Acevedo, 85, second from left. Photo, Jaw notice for the Wall Street Journal. Lacking fresh recruits, Tejo has turned into a game for geezers, with the best players over 50 and competing in the senior masters division. The number of teams in Bogotá's Tejo League has shrunk from 45 to 7 while dozens of the city's Tejo clubs have gone out of business. The sport is dying out because everyone is getting old, says Álvaro Rojas, president of the Colombian Tejo Federation. Colombia's Congress, which has a soft spot for the pastime. It first tried to boost Tejo in 2000 by elevating it to the status of national sport, complete with its own postage stamp and a solemn hymn about the fervent and tenacious players who sling the disc. The campaign failed to halt the sport's decline. So in October, lawmakers passed another bill declaring Tejo part of the national patrimony, noting that it was invented by local Muisca Indians long before the Spanish conquest. A Tejo player holds his disc and a beer. Photo, Jaw notice for the Wall Street Journal. Congresswoman Nelly Ruiz, who dreams of making Tejo an Olympic event, is the main sponsor of the bill. She says the legislation aims to remove the stigma that this is a sport for boozers by boosting government spending on public Tejo courts that are alcohol-free. They are badly needed, says 16-year-old Cesar Vasquez, a rising Tejo talent who is too young for Bogotá's beer-drenched clubs. To train, he must board a bus to the nearby town of Cota, home to one of the region's only public Tejo facilities. With 10 lanes for Tejo, the indoor coliseum is a more wholesome setting. Teenagers wearing leather holsters for their discs arrive for practice on bicycles. The only available beverage comes out of the restroom water faucet. Luis Balsaro, who helps run the training center, says he has to plead with skeptical parents to let their youngsters try Tejo. One of the newbies, 13-year-old Christian Martinez, says his mother gave him the green light with this warning: just don't turn into a drunk. The sport is similar to pitching horseshoes. Tejo players take turns tossing discs underhanded and score points by hitting the bull's eye, a metal ring in the center of a clay pit, or the gunpowder packets that surround it. Serious competitors say it's tough enough when sober, and that aim and concentration crumble as blood alcohol content rises. Still, Tejo has always been awash in booze. The Muisca Indians sometimes played with chunks of silver and gold while imbibing chicha, a fermented corn drink, says Nelson Guerra, a player who has researched the sport and collects old Tejo discs. He lives in the central farm town of Termec where Tejo was first played. That would explain the towering sculpture in the town square, made out of scrap metal, depicting a Muisca chieftain in mid-throw. Nelson Guerra, with his collection of ancient Tejo discs, sit in front of crates of beer in the town of Termec, where the sport was born. Photo. Jaw notice for the Wall Street Journal. To celebrate the latest congressional action, Termec last month threw a 4-day street party, sponsored by the Mexican beer Tecate, that included a beauty pageant in which contestants were grilled on their knowledge of Tejo. Termec and other isolated towns were early hotbeds for Tejo largely because it was one of the few accessible pastimes for the poor masses, says Luis Gonzalez, president of the Bogotá Tejo League. As more peasants moved into the cities, newly opened Tejo clubs replaced chicha with beer. That led to another tradition. Rather than renting by the hour, the clubs required players to buy 1 to 2 cases of beer per court. Perhaps not surprisingly, a 1993 brewery workers' strike threw the clubs into crisis. Tejo officials point to other factors undermining the sport, like the explosions. Ultra-violent cocaine kingpin Pablo Escobar is long dead and Colombia's half-century-old guerrilla war is over. Yet the blasts from well-placed Tejo tosses stress out the neighbors, reminding them of their bad old days. A statue of a Muisca chieftain tossing a Tejo disc dominates the town square in Termec. Photo, John Otis for the Wall Street Journal. Mr. Gonzalez says the clubs are too rustic for upper-class Colombians, who often balk at prying the discs out of the clay with their bare hands. That's prompted some Tejo clubs to build pits with a cleaner, Play-Doh-like compound or provide caddies to do the dirty work. At the San Juanero Club in Bogotá's industrial district, the music booms, the roof leaks, and the walls are festooned with posters for Heineken, Tecate, Sol, Miller Genuine Draft, and 3 local brews, Poker, Aguila, and Club Colombia. There are no caddies. Players wipe their hands on the concrete floor to improve their grip. They smoke cigarettes with their beer. The men's room consists of a ceramic trough only partially hidden from public view by a flimsy signboard for Miller Lite. For Mr. Acevedo, the retired priest, the San Juanero is paradise. He gathers here every week with 3 friends, age 84, 75 and 64. As the senior among senior citizens, Mr. Acevedo, 85 years old, is allowed to hurl his disc from half-court. But he still partakes. If there's no beer, he says, there's no Tejo. Appeared in the December 5, 2018, print edition as Bocce with Bumps fails to ignite.